Hi everybody, Kiri from Mindful Moods, and today I just want to discuss some or two samples of work that I'll be putting up for us just now, and the importance of having a good relationship with our students and attitude towards our own subject. So what we bring to the table is so important, even more important than actually the work at the end of the day. We're going to see the result of this happening with the youngster in her lessons. And so what is it in our work? Just to explain how we do our work, we always start with asking, what is your goal? What is your intention? What are you bringing to the table? And as we begin to talk about goals and motivate or intentions, we can start to see what feelings come up. And in terms of learning, feelings are incredibly important. And so obviously I loved it in the one course, the life coach man was talking about, we are meaning-making machines. Life happens and we're the ones who assign meaning to the events that take place. And then we perceive things in a certain way. And so looking at a lot of the stuff I've been researching and doing, we have this thought, we have this idea, we then feed that idea. So a thought can last or should last or lasts around 90 seconds at the most. When we're thinking on something longer than that, we are feeding that thought. We are thinking into it, we are bringing our attitude, our emotions, and attaching it with it. And depending on our attitude and our emotions that we attach to this thought, so the mind and the mind chemistry responds very differently. And so as a teacher, we use this to our benefit. When we attach or when we bring feelings of joy and enjoyment and laughter and the positive feelings with the information, so presented in a manner that's exciting and inspiring, within relationship that is safe and secure, this information comes in with these emotions attached as such, or the child, as I say, brings that within themselves. They attach these emotions to the information coming in. Information that's brought in with feelings of joy and excitement, and this idea of being inspired by the work is hardwired straight away. So as information comes in, the brain's got to decide, what do I do with this information? Because so much information is coming in all of the time through the senses, and that being sight, hearing, smell, taste, but also touch, vestibular, proprioception, and then the interoception, which is in actual fact the feedback that we're getting from within the body, both physically and emotionally. And so the body's got a lot of information coming in, and it has to decide what is relevant, what do I hold on to, what is irrelevant, and allow that to fade into the background or let go of. And so as this information is coming in, the mind has to decide very quickly, is this something to keep? Is this something that I can attach to prior knowledge? And this is why it's so important we talk about creating hangers, and that's the job of especially our younger teachers, is to create hangers that the older teachers, or teachers in bigger grades, older teachers, the teachers in the higher grades can begin to attach the information to. And so we need to create these hangers and make sure they're there. And of course, when we do things in a very enjoying the work, so we're able to hardwire concepts straight away. Sadly, and it's not just that the information is let go of, but when information comes in with fear and anxiety, it triggers in our work what we call a learning profile. I was very encouraged yesterday because my son was actually talking about the teacher talking about left brain, right brain, and who has got a combination of both. And this, of course, allowed me to spark a conversation. And I explained to him, that the brain is incredible and can reorganize itself for different tasks all the time. We talk about neuroplasticity. It can never be entirely whole-brained. It's always choosing, because they work so differently in terms of how they respond to what's happening, but it chooses to go more with the left brain way of dealing with something, or more with the right brain dealing. But when we're talking about this combination, we're talking about a child who isn't stressed a child who's got access to both. So even though we're going to see more activity happening on the one hemisphere, there definitely is activity in the other, and there's this connection. And this is what we want, because we want children to be able to connect the fact with the feeling. And so when we bring fear and anxiety to the party, we actually trigger what is called a learning profile, where the brain has to decide very quickly in fight or flight, remembering that the maths test, the teacher shouting, the class being noisy, is equivalent in this state, in this place, as the lion is going to eat me. And so the brain chooses left or right brain. Which one we go with here? Left or right eye, left or right ear, left or right hand, left or right foot. Which one? We got to choose. We got to use one. And we have limited thinking. And so this discussion, as I say, becomes far more interesting, because yes, we should all be a combination. And that's what happens when we're not stressed, when we're able to move, because moving activates the brain. But when we become stressed and we bring feelings of anxiety and fear, feelings that we're scared we're going to disappoint, feelings that we're scared we are not going to do what the teacher expects of us, that we're not capable, that the stress outweighs our resources. So we move into, first of all, a learning profile. Depending on what it is, it limits each of us differently. So it means that, but what it really means is I'm not able to take the information in through all of my senses, left and right, as the brain chooses to go with a leading one of each. And of course, this work in a course and workshop, if you want to know more of that. Also, what happens is it also then brings in feelings that if I'm in danger, I can't take on this information. And of course, we have phobias that begin to take place. For me, if I look back to my schooling career, I really enjoyed accountancy until, and I was getting very good marks up until, and the teacher was a lovely person, but I just didn't get the teacher in grade 11. And eventually I was in danger of failing the subject, not because of my lack of resources, but because within the subject I had begun to believe that I couldn't do this, that this is something that's beyond me. And actually, if I'm real with myself, of course I can figure it out. It's not that complicated, but to this day, I really battle with accounting, and I'm definitely not the money person in the house. If I see these balance sheets and spreadsheets, I actually switch off completely. I can feel that feeling in my stomach again. I have this bit of panic in my chest. And this is triggered by the work or by the way it's presented, because it takes me back to that place in the classroom where I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed, and it triggers that pattern and that response that I'm not getting involved and I'm out of here. And so we have to start with a place where we are encouraging kids, where we're motivated, and that always starts with us having our goals and our plan in mind. When we bring to the party this attitude of enthusiasm, excitement, we create a safe space for the kids to explore. And so from that space, we go into that first, and I talk about these three functional areas, but we go into that first one. Do I participate or do I withdraw? So do I participate? Am I inspired? Am I encouraged? Is my attitude with me on this? Am I confident? Am I willing to give it a go? Am I willing to take a risk? Am I willing to take that step forwards? Or this is a dangerous place. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm stepping back. And yeah, this is something that is scary. And of course, as we choose to do that, then so the teacher will respond to that, either positively or negatively. Come on, let's do it. It's going to be fine. Let's take it a step at a time. Or why are you like this? Your work attitude is really bad. Your work ethic, you never do your homework. You always get the answers wrong. You're not concentrating. And so we begin to feed more and more into that. So really scary stuff, because to understand that I have to have my goals in check before I get into this motivation, this participation, anticipation. If I'm in the middle, and of course that's where we want our kids to be in terms of this learning this functional area of the brain, where I'm able to step forward when I'm ready and willing and it's safe, but I'm also able to step back when it's not. And I'm able to know the difference because I'm in a very balanced stage, and this is what we want to do. And so obviously, as this functional area of the brain is in place, so I can also then connect feeling, thought with feeling, and move over then only to the academic side of the brain, the third functional area, where I need processing, thinking, communication to take place. So let's just take a look, if I can share the screen. So just take a look here. We've got two areas of the brain happening here. We've got two pieces of work happening here. Let me rephrase that. The one is in a class where the child is not learning the way that she learns best. This child tends to be more right-brained. This teacher tends to have a lot of writing and reading and a lot of copying down. Her writing and reading, just for a bit of background stuff, is something that she's battled with in previous grades and something that she's working on. The second part, this teacher is talking for her, and this is a right-brain kid, talking more, getting them to interact more, getting them to respond to emotions a little more. And as you can see the difference here, even just in the writing, and of course as I've studied graphology and continue to study it, we can see straight away the difference in the attitude. We can see in the top one that these letters are actually leaning back. And in terms of graphology, that's the sense of holding back and withdrawing happening even within these letters here. We also see that the lines where she's ruled of have been rushed, and she hasn't, I'm guessing, as I can see in this sense of panic, this absolute rushing, the ruler hasn't been held correctly. There hasn't been the time taken to consider, how do I make a neat line? The letters are up and down and all over the shoulders if we look at the baseline, even though we have the line as a guideline here. Letter formation, we can see in some cases here is actually not great, as she's having to keep up with the lesson and not having that time to then write the letters nicely. Capital letters like the word February instead of February, we can see there again. And of course, the cursive B and D are different. And so in terms of crossing the midline, we shouldn't actually have too much of that problem happening here, as in cursive we remember that the B looks very different to the D. However, we can see that this is happening now on a mental level, that the child is misspelling the word now, not able to, as I say, access all of the things that we need to. Lines haven't been missed under headings and under writing, as we can see there. And we can see a lot of blotching, and that just shows hesitation as this child is trying to work. The stopping and having to check and think if I'm on the right page, and that's all happening in that top writing there. In the bottom writing, we see less wavy lines. We see better letter formation. We see consistency even in the pressure in which the pen is being used. So we're not having this blotchiness, we're not having dark and light. We're having, yes, of course, there's still a few mistakes here and there, but we can see the flow is much better within this, because the thought is much better and this child is in a better state of mind as this child is writing. We notice that the letters aren't leaning as much, and while they lean to the left slightly in some of them, we see in most of these letters they are quite head over heart, and that's what we want. In our work again, that's talking very much into that second functional area where we want the head and heart aligned and together in this space, so that I can think and feel and have access to fact and feeling while it is that I'm writing. We can see just, there are even mistakes and things that have been crossed out, but there's not this untidiness, there's not the sense of haste, there's not the sense of rushing. And as I said before, letter formation much better here, as I'm able to flow, I'm in tune and in step with what's happening in this class. So you can see straight away, even before we even go into asking if they've answered these questions correctly, we can see the state of this child's mind being in such a better place in the second handwriting sample. So can you imagine if we can just see this in the writing and understand the attitude that we've got happening in each of these? What is going to happen when this child is now expected to answer these questions? Which subject is she going to be doing better in? the top one, where we're really seeing mistakes happening, even within the writing, or the bottom one, where we can, from the word go, see that this child is in a secure state. She feels supported. She has access to whole brain thinking in this one, in our second sample. And of course, is going to do so much better when it comes to answering that work. So teachers, don't take for granted the untidy handwriting and the child who's struggling in your class. We do courses on all of this wonderful work. And you can too get hold of us and ask us about some of these courses so that you can decipher straight away, going into the test, even before having read it, you know, how is this child coping in my class? I think, again, just to, at first glance, you can't see all these little things, but really looking at it today, you know, you can see the state of mind the child's in. Just one more thing, if you look at the word February, can you see, and this is what I talk about in my work, can you see the little squiggles? This is showing that the child is not able to think in this point and remember and have access to that, the memory of the word February and how to spell it. Because she is very overwhelmed at this point, you can see this little squiggle almost holding back and delaying as she has to go back into her brain to remember what letter is coming next, because the writing and the spelling is not supporting here. Even more so, these are two different languages. This is an English child's, by the way, writing in English as opposed to writing in the second language here. So this has got nothing to do with the fact that it's the actual wording, because we can see in the second one, she might not necessarily know how to spell those words being in a different language, but we don't have these little squiggles happening as she's thinking of what letter comes next. However, in the English ones, which is her first language, and she's under stress, we have all these squiggles happening, especially in that word February, as she battles to remember how to spell it. So yes, very, very, very interesting stuff and very powerful stuff. And I really hope that in listening to this, this little video today, you come to realize how important it is to create an environment conducive to learning. And when we talk about that, we need to be creating a safe space for children to be themselves, to tell you when they're struggling, to call for help, but also to interact and enjoy and step out and take those academic risks that new learning requires. So have a good day. We'll talk again soon.